Good evening. This is John Bailey, and this is People to Be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. And tonight, you've got Councilperson Milagros Lecuona.
Thank you very much for inviting me, John,
Thank
Peter.
you for coming on the
My
program.
My pleasure.
And Ms. Lecuona has been on the Common Council since 2008, and 2 years to go in her present term. Right? Three years to go.
I was reelected for the third time last year.
Right. And she studied urban planning and international affairs at Columbia University, studied architecture at ETSAN, Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, went to Deutsche School in the Colegio Alemán, Santa Cruz de Tenerife, and lives in White Plains. And so you're the perfect person to ask. The Stakeholder Task Force presented its strategic plan summary for White Plains, and you were in attendance Monday night. What did you think of it?
I was in attendance Monday night, but I also was in attendance in all the previous, except for one meeting, so I have been following the whole process. I'm sure that there are many good things that is going to be coming out of the strategic plan. But since I was also part of following the process, even in 2007, when Mr. Capelli and others were interested in developing the site, the train station, I am a little bit disappointed in the amount of new ideas that came out of 1 year, $1 million study. Actually, I do have a copy of the August 22nd, 2007 RFQ that was sent to developers interested.
RFQ means request for qualifications, where the city wants to hire a consultant or someone to help out on a project.
So we were already there.
So you have to determine, is this firm qualified?
Right.
And they have to tell you why they are qualified to do whatever the task is.
Yes.
Right. And these companies, about 3 or 4 of them, came with very interesting proposals. Now, the present administration would tell you, which is true, that their idea was instead of having developers to come back with their own proposals, to have the city be the one being proactive and providing with their guidelines. And that's why they are creating this TOD strategic plan, which means a transit-oriented development. However, that transit-oriented development, we kind of automatically have it because we already have the train station there, we have the buses there, and the whole system in the downtown in that particular area with Tarrytown Road and other intersections, the parking from the parking lot from the county center, etc. All this is related to transit, so it's there. The question is, what we didn't do that we could have done with that $1 million and 1 entire year working around it?
Well, Louis Capelli, some years ago, came to the city and said, look, if you put up about $1 million, it happened to be, to help me study and get this off the ground, I will rebuild the train station. I will put in buildings where there should be buildings, residence, office, retail, whatever, in the surrounding area. And we can get this started. And the city rejected it out of hand, basically.
Yeah. Well, the city...
Now here, what we saw presented was not a plan to build something.
No.
This is for a concept.
Strategic plan. It's a concept.
So is it realistic for the city to be able to tell developers what to do? I mean, what developer is going to build something that they don't think can be built?
Well, it's a fair question, and we are kind of going here in circles. Who is first, the chicken or the eggs? And the reason, let me go back to the why Mr. Capelli's proposal was rejected, is because he was not really for his, let's say, plan. What he wanted was the exclusivity of the whole thing, and I don't think that the city would have been responsible by allowing in that prime area one developer at the time when this happened, just to say, yes, Mr. Sons, you can have this exclusivity. So I don't think that that was the right thing to do myself. So I do agree with that decision. On the other hand, as I said, I would have preferred right now, with this amount of money and this amount of time and this amount of human resources, because there was quite a participation from what I understand through emails and everything, to have really addressed the challenges and therefore opportunities that we have in that area, especially with Battle Hill neighborhood, with the whole county center, all Tarrytown Road. All that space there is so dysfunctional, and it becomes this very, very important entrance to the city of White Plains. Yeah. That if you look at the drawings, if you look at the maps that we are provided, this plan ends at the tracks where the train station is.
Absolutely.
And it's like almost saying Battle Hill doesn't exist, Tarrytown Road doesn't exist.
Yeah, they get some pedestrian walkways and some bike passages.
Right. So what I am seeing is things that I already knew. I already knew that the bus station is there, that we can build so much, floor air ratio in that entire area. I'm a little bit concerned about certain words that I keep hearing now with the new commissioner. And I do understand that
you're talking about the planning commissioner, Christopher Gomez.
Right. I know that he's comes with new ideas. It's a new way of thinking as a planner. But I grew up in the Canary Islands. One of the most beautiful parks was nearby my house, and I have to cut through to go to school. I walked to school or I took buses. That's the way I grew up. But I would, as beautiful as that park was, I would never try to copy that park in White Plains, because we have a totally different weather. The park was situated in a completely different location. So you have to learn why things happen and why it works. So I am concerned when I hear something like form-based code. This is now one of the new things, which is not really that new when you go to Portland, Oregon, or some cities outside Phoenix and so on. And it's a way of dealing with bad design, architectural design, and bringing scroll together. So when these cities were developed like linear and car-oriented, now this form-based code works. But it's as a lack of good architecture. So when you have form-based code, it's like you are telling the architects that is coming to design, you can build so, and so. Yeah. So with that said, you wouldn't have had a Frank Lloyd Wright, you wouldn't have had in Spain a Gaudi. And when I go to these cities, because I like to travel to cities to learn also new things, and I ask their planners, where are you going to put the innovative part in your cities when you're doing form-based?
It seemed as if the presentation focused on, as you mentioned, redoing the zoning code to tell the architects and developers how a building should be designed. Right. It focused on pedestrian access. It focused on bicycle access.
More bicycle than pedestrian.
But as and open space by the train station. But as you say, that only works really part of the year, because right now we're in December, and as we speak, it is about 17 degrees outside. Hardly the kind of weather where you would want to have a picnic at the train station, or even ride your bicycle to the train station to get to work in Manhattan. So is it kind of short-sighted to focus solely on pedestrian use rather than the utilitarian use of the train station? After all, the train station is designed to help people move from one place to another.
Right, and actually, I don't know if you take the train, but I do take the train a lot. And,
occasionally, yes.
Yeah, and I take buses because I have the bus stop in front of my house, and was one of the reasons why we liked the house, because I come from that culture, right? Taking the buses, walking. I don't bike. I wish I bike, but I didn't grow up with that mentality because my parents, growing in the Canary Islands, so it was too dangerous. They knew about too many kids being killed for that, which is another issue that I have with the bike lanes in White Plains. I mean, I think that they are dangerous, period. And and the people that I know that they use them, they are good bikers, and they don't have kids, they don't have teenagers. But that's another story. Going back to the train station, if you take the train, and you are, for example, sitting there at the bench waiting for a taxi, and you look at the whole structure, it's falling apart. If you go to the train station and you go to the bathrooms, disgusting. If you go to the train station and you are running because you don't know at what time your next train runs, you have to go upstairs, find out what the train is coming, and then maybe now you know that you can come back downstairs to get your coffee, and then you can go back upstairs. So simple, put a sign downstairs in the lobby.
Well, that's the MTA.
Yeah, so this is all MTA. Why do we have to spend $1 million on a study when that's supposed to be all MTA? On the platform, there are these closed cubicles for people to wait indoors. Yeah. In order to have the heat turn on, you have to press a button. Most people don't know. You don't have an idea how many times I have to go there. People is freezing in their coats, and then I go and press that red button, and then people said, "Oh, we didn't know."
Mm. Yeah. So a simple sign would help people.
And
be
there
more
is a very this teeny tiny sign, but you know it's.
But now they did have a representative from the MTA serving on the city's committee that was working with the consultant on this, and what he said during the presentation was that there may be some cosmetic changes that they'll make, some cosmetic improvements to the station within 5 years or so. Mm-hmm. In terms of reconstruction, you know, that may be 10 years out, perhaps even more. There was really no reference to a specific
no money
date.
available.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, is the city barking up the wrong tree here, getting into a long-term planning situation when really what we need to try to keep the track going in terms of revitalizing White Plains is short-term action?
I always see it as both. It's a short-term and a long-term. Because certain things you cannot do them in 5 years. But going to your question about the MTA, first of all, I was not a member. I wasn't invited to be a member of the of this group of experts working on the study. But yeah, I talked also to the representative of MTA that day, and he said, you know, if you want to do a cosmetic, it's on the zero. If you want to do a renovation, is in the 2 zeros. And if you then go to major reconstruction, is on the 3 zeros, right? So I am pretty sure that what they are going to try to do after what I said before is take care of all those things that could become a liability, because there are pieces of the exterior, especially on the overpass, that they are ready to fall down. So they have to take care of that.
Right. Did the summary, was this presented to the council before Monday night for their input, just for first reactions? You know, the actual summary and strategic plan.
Well, there was,
discussed at all?
during a work session, there was a 10-minute.
10 minutes.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I was surprised to see is that one of the big discoveries is that there is not much linkage between the East and West. I mean, we all know that.
Mm-hmm.
One thing Mayor Roach said during the process was that they reached out, they had a lot of public input, he said. Did they reach out to the Common Council during this? Did you actually sit down with them
no.
and have an opportunity to
Not during the
trade
entire
thoughts?
year.
No, but you know, the mayor could come and say, as he always says, my phones are ready, my office is open, anybody can come and talk to me. But you know, I have been doing that for many years, and many of my ideas and initiatives then land in nothing. So then I also like to be proactive with my time. So if I know that I am not going to be taking, let's say,
well,
in consideration,
what I'm looking at really is was the Common Council treated as just another member of the public?
So
Seems
I'm
like
concerned, yes.
Yeah,
At
seems
least
like
the common councils that we have been kind of talking about this plan on and off. We haven't been approached like I mean, the mayor at one point, when Betty Cheney, the former commissioner, was the one that fined about
Chesney,
this $1 million grant. She was the one that initiated it.
No, we didn't
and-
know that.
Well, I can even show you, there is an article here in the paper that quoted her as the person that initiated that. Well, she initiated many things. The whole rezoning also of the Westmoreland, that also was her idea. The start of the Historic Preservation Committee, that was her idea. I mean, she was very involved with us at Sustainable White Plains also to move ahead into writing a plan on sustainability, which after she was let go, it hasn't been moved forward, that plan.
Now, the zoning particularly is something that the Common Council will have to approve. You seem to feel that the zoning plan that Mr. Gomez presented is a little bit too structured, right?
Well, as you said, the Common Council now is supposed to approve this, and there are going to be public hearings and all kinds of things. So we are going to have the time to go over it in more detail. But this is a plan that comes from a very reputable urban planning company, and they have been working on it for a whole year. So even if a couple of us in the Common Council have some concerns or some issues, in order for something to move, as you know, you only need 4 votes.
Now, you have been occasionally a sharp critic of some things that the administration has tried to do. For example, the fountain downtown. They wanted to, and they actually did, allocate more money to put into redoing that, making repairs, again, on the fountain. We know on the French-American School, well, what your position has been. It's been highly critical of what has gone on there. There have been some other things where you seem to have been a lone voice in the wilderness on occasion.
No, not necessarily the wilderness.
On occasion, there are others who have joined in your criticisms. Do you, when you go into these council meetings and work sessions, feel kind of isolated?
Well, yeah, it is isolated to be the person most of the times that it's there trying to find where the things don't match. Because, but instead of saying isolated, which is something that I don't care. Because if I know that what I am saying, doing, or voting for, it's my own conviction. If I am isolated or not, that's no, I don't care. But what I can tell you is that in order to be not in support of something that you know that the supermajority or the majority is going to be supporting, you really have to have your data, your information. You really have to do your homework. Otherwise, you're going to look like just a person that says no for whatever reason. So I put in my shoulders a lot of work every time that I have to defend a position that doesn't agree with the mayor and that doesn't agree with 5 of the Common Council or 6 of the Common Councils. So that's why wherever I go, I always bring a lot of documents, not papers, documents, things that have been published and things that I have studied. Every time that you see me giving a statement, even if I am in favor or not, you will see me carrying a lot of papers because I have done my homework.
So, your approach then, it's simply not to show up and vote and then go home.
No.
So, do you treat this as a full-time job of necessity? I mean, how much time do you put in?
I do put a lot of time, but in my advantage. Remember, I am a trained architect. I am a registered architect in Europe. and I have a master's degree in urban planning and in international and public affairs. I have taught at Columbia, and this is my work and my passion. So as I keep saying, if I show you all the different initiatives that I had through the years for White Plains, I see White Plains as my laboratory.
Well, there were occasions where you actually did present a plan or renderings or
In fact, there's
drawings
one right behind
that you had prepared and submitted to the city just as a courtesy, as a gift to the people of White Plains.
Right.
Now is that something that you do as a way to just give back to the city, or is there a political motivation involved? What is it that motivates you to take your time and effort and professional experience to do it without compensation?
Very simple, Peter. I am a masochist. And so I always I can't stop. My kids used to say, you are a workaholic, but also my mind doesn't stop. And when I go around and I see the opportunities, possibilities, I think in spatial, and I like to draw and I like to sketch. People that knows me, I am famous for my sketches. I always carry paper, and so I like to put things on paper. I am more like a person that draws than a person that talks.
You brought in a plan, which is over there on the boards, for Baldwin Farm, and a long time ago I lived in that area, and Baldwin Farm, was basically becoming a overgrown nothingness, nothing attractive, nothing that helped the neighborhood. So what encouraged you to sit down and draw up a plan to actually turn it into a recreational center?
Well, let's go up here where number 6 is the community gardens. That exists right now. And that's how I discovered Baldwin Farm. I became friends with some people that were working and are working in those gardens. Beautiful. They are doing such a wonderful job, and they started coming back. And then they started having certain problems with the administration, because they wanted to change the policies. They wanted to change how many lots, and so more and more involved. And then I started realizing, wow, we have here a treasurer, and so I went to see this John J. Homestead and get involved with Intergenerate. And they started talking about a program that they have with the chicken coop, and that we could have it. And I said, well, this is a wonderful place for that. And then the mind never stops. So then from that is that, why do kids in White Plains have to go and pick up pumpkins somewhere else, or go and pick up apples somewhere else, when we have this wonderful property here? And I started sketching and put this plan together in 2013. And show it to former Commissioner Nicoletti, because I wanted to make sure that my idea or concept was not a crazy idea that could be done. So I gave him copies, and he said, this is great. And they were looking into that, and then nothing happened. So
they brought a herd of goats in.
That was this summer.
To take care of the poison ivy. Yeah. Apparently the goats we did a little story on it. The goats love to eat poison ivy, but they also can carry the oils on their fur,
coats.
Their coats, so you have to be careful not to pet them if you go to visit the goats. But what you envision is something far greater than putting a herd of goats on the property.
Well, it's the goat herd surprised me, because I met with the mayor in the spring, and I gave copies to all the council members about this proposal, with a serious written proposal that was actually approved by all the members unanimously by the Sustainable White Plains, which I am the chair, and they all loved this idea. And so we sent a real proposal to the mayor, to the common council, and that was in the spring. So then I met with the mayor, and he said that they may be looking into the bees, which is part of this proposal, by the way. And then, and it was actually published by the Journal News. that the city was bringing bees. And the next thing that I know is that a couple of weeks later there were those goats. He never mentioned, so I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
Well,
But
you never know.
unfortunately, in this plan, there is a very narrow, beautiful stream that is all covered. People don't even know that there is water there. We could do the daylight there and have benches and have use the existing foundation from the previous house to create a small nature center. And you don't have to do all this stuff at once. You know,
Just
you
do it
can start
gradually,
with a little bit here and there. And
Speaking of things being done gradually, could you update us on where the FASNY matter stands? When will the council be holding hearings on that?
well, let me, as I told you, I always brings a lot of paper. This is a copy of a partial copy of the cover of the drawings that was
This is
provided
the revised
by
site plan.
Yeah, and summary of environmentally sensitive site features, parcel A, because now the issue is that the whole site, all the 4 parcels, the site were considered environmental sensitive. But now, since the whole alternate plan is on parcel A, the FASNA team
they're
are
saying it's not environmentally
and
sensitive.
so this is part of the cover of their package.
I see.
And they are saying that that zero, everything is 0, 0, 0. So it's no, this, according to them, this parcel
And
is
so,
not.
so the idea is that means that you don't need a super majority vote to approve it on
Exactly.
the council. It would just be a simple 4-3 vote.
Exactly. But then in response to that, as you know, the Gednea Association hired a consultant that are experts on soils and other related things, and apparently they have solid reasons to believe that Parcel A is also environmental sensitive site, as was. And so that's where we are right now. We don't.
So we can expect the argument to continue then,
Yeah,
and
yes.
nothing definitive.
No
at
date to
least
designate
immediately.
it.
Right, no date to designate. I mean, I know that part of the alternate plan was all these benchmarks and all these deadlines, but, you know, in order for the project to move ahead, you need to do what you have to do.
More deliberation.
Right?
Well, Councilwoman Milagros, Lecuona, you have been heard. Thank you for being with it.
Thank you very
on the
much
show.
for inviting me. Thank
Right.
you.
Good night for people to be heard.